Hello everyone, I'm the Mass Analyst. There's been quite a bit of controversy lately over e-begging, the practice of using YouTube in order to raise money. The Amazing Atheist has been e-begging in order to raise money so he can get laid and to sponsor his DVD making tour. And Cody, Satruninefilms, has also been e-begging for a super duper video cam or a camcorder. And there's been some fallout of this. There's been some significant criticism. Tommyfromthebronx has been made a pretty good video trying to help Cody raise some money, and he's gotten some flack. And I'll post links to these videos in the sidebar. And he's gotten some flack from that. Opinions have ranged. On the one extreme is Fakesagan, and he really tore into Cody and the Amazing Atheist for their e-begging. And on the other extreme, you have Thefreindlygeek. Maybe I shouldn't call them extremes because they both have their points of view. They both have reasonable points. I tend to, on this issue at least, lean more toward the Thefreindlygeek side. And I'll explain that in a second. First, let me admit right out that I've given a thought to trying to raise money on YouTube. It was a passing thought. I thought, hey, maybe I could set up a cafe press shop and sell Mass Analyst t-shirts on it. Then I can use all the money that I raise from those sales and buy a pack of gum. But seriously, if I really wanted to make money, the best way for me to make money on YouTube would be to try and figure out some way to get the government to pass a law requiring everybody to wear a Mass Analyst t-shirt as part of a uniform. And if anyone really didn't like this, if they wanted to opt out, all they'd have to do is send me $5. Hey, I'd retire a billionaire in no time. But really, let's get getting a little bit more realistic, though. Is e-begging bad? Or why do people think e-begging is bad? Really, there are two components to e-begging. Each of them could have negative connotations. For most people, myself included, begging is sort of a humiliating thing. It's certainly better to stand on one's 2 feet and actually earn the money through a job. And I think most people feel this way. There may be situations someday, if I can imagine a situation where I might be forced to beg. If, for example, I had hospital bills coming up that I couldn't afford, either for myself or someone I was close to. Or if I were being sued for and I was defending myself not just for myself, but for some sort of principle that would benefit others, say some sort of freedom of speech principle or whatever. There are a few narrow instances where I could say that begging is certainly understandable and even maybe noble when you're fighting not just for yourself, for others. Other times it might... any other type of begging and I would feel really awkward. I'd have to be really desperate. And I see nothing bad about begging if you really, really need the funds, say, for an emergency. But that should be a last resort. However, it's really not that bad. If you're willing to undergo the humiliation part, if you're willing to do what's necessary to sponsor your art, to get your art sponsored, rather, if you're willing to put up with that, then from that end, I don't see a problem with it. If you're willing to go through it, if you're willing to owe people in a way, fine. Then there's nothing wrong with that aspect of debate. I'm sorry. There's nothing wrong with that aspect of begging. But there's another aspect of begging which has negative connotations, and justly so. When I go downtown, if I hang out downtown, sometimes sooner or later some guy's going to come up to me and ask for a handout. I find this sort of an uncomfortable situation. I don't like turning people down, but at the same time, hey, I've earned my money. Why should I be giving it out to somebody I don't even know? Now, maybe they're really desperate, but it's just as likely that they're going to go out and buy a beer with it. No way, no how. So I'm put in a position where I have to turn someone down, and that's a little awkward. I really rather just be minding my own business, wishing people would mind their own business and not coming up to me for a handout. Well, you might say YouTube is a bit different because you're not having to deal face to face. You don't actually have to turn people down. You can just ignore their video, and that's true. But I propose an even better protocol to minimize this experience. I don't see anything wrong with begging if people would just do the following. If they would just put at the top of their video, in the title of their video, a saying, I am an e-beggar, and then they could put a colon and explain what exactly they're begging for. Help me buy a camera. I'm an e-beggar. Help me fund my hospital bills. That way, people know that you're going to be doing some e-begging in your video, and they can choose to watch or not to watch. They don't even have to feel bad about not giving. Now, I've seen Cody's film, and I've seen the Amazing Atheist film, and quite truthfully, I think if I were really super rich and I had lots and lots of money to give to charity, I'd consider donating to Cody. But I'm not super rich, I have to admit that. And quite truthfully, I think there are other charities that are much more worthwhile. Even if you're super rich, you only have a finite amount of dollars to give to charity, and so you have to make choices. And, well, I mentioned in the top, if you look at the title of my video, I do include the words, I'm an e-beggar. And since I'm talking about it, let me do some e-begging for some charities that I think are really good, really worthwhile. Probably all of you have been touched by someone who's died of cancer or who's suffered through cancer. And that's a scourge I really don't have to tell you about. I'm going to post a link to the American Cancer Society, so if you have any loose money kicking around, you can donate it to people on YouTube if you want, but you might want to consider sending a check to the American Cancer Society. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right, or Lou Gehrig's disease, is a very terrible disease, and I don't think that it's being funded nearly enough. I had a friend who died a few years ago from Lou Gehrig's disease, and it was one of the most horrible ways to go that I can imagine. It makes Alzheimer's look like a walk in the park, really. What happens is you begin gradually to lose control of your muscles. My friend was an amazing singer, and the first thing she started losing was her voice. She couldn't sing anymore, and then she couldn't. Her walking was hard, and as time progressed over a period of months, it was less than a year, every muscle group within her body shut down. And what happened is, which is typical of ALS, eventually she couldn't, she was drooling. She couldn't control her salivary glands. So someone would have to hold a cup underneath her mouth and suction out the drool in her mouth. And she kept up her dignity and spirits as well as anybody could. Fortunately, there were a lot of people to help her. She was an extremely well-loved person in the community, and she kept up her spirits as much as possible. But eventually what happened is she couldn't swallow the saliva, and she suffocated. And that's how people with ALS goes. It's very hard to raise money for ALS because most of the people who know someone with ALS have to care for their every needs, and they don't have the time really to go out and raising money. So I really hope that you will consider donating to the ALS Association to help fund research to overcome this terrible disease. And finally, and I'll post a link to them in the sidebar as well. And finally, more and more children are being diagnosed with autism. This is not just a tragedy for those who are affected, but for their families as well. Having to raise an autistic child, you have to give up your entire life, basically. It's also a very troubling disease. So yeah, I'm going to e-beg now that I'm bringing up this subject. So if any of you have some loose money kicking around, go to the sidebar, check out the organizations, and if you feel like it, donate it. Naturally, I'm not going to know who is giving the donations. That should be kept private, and I just want to say in advance a great big thank you to anyone who does write a check. Hopefully none of you and none of your loved ones will get any of these horrific diseases. But if you do, well, maybe your contribution will make a difference in helping people live with them and possibly even curing the disease. So that's my take on e-begging. If it's done right, if people are put on notice that the video is going to be about e-begging, that you might be asked for a handout, you have your choice. You can click on the video and watch it or not. You don't watch it, you're not going to really feel guilty at all. So I see nothing wrong with it if people follow this protocol. And that's about it. Well, this has been the Mass Analyst, under and in.